Hello, YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122, and I want to welcome you all to the podcast for high school sports all across Western North Carolina, episode 4. So, what we're going to be doing, the fall 2021 football schedule has just been released for Brevard High School, and if you remember my last video that I did on this podcast, I went and broken down all of Brevard's conference foes. Well, 2 of them are not actually in Brevard's conference this year. I am not really aware. I am aware of at this moment, and that is Robbinsville and RS Central. They are on the schedule, but I don't think they're going to be in our conference this season. We only have to play 4 teams in our conference, so as far as I'm concerned. But today we are going to be breaking down every single team on Brevard's schedule, all 10 of them, yes, including the bye week, which makes 11. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, week 1, Brevard goes on the road to Milltown to play an old foe of theirs, P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. Now, Brevard usually ends the season with P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. But this time, it's the other way around. They start the season with P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. And this will be interesting because P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. is usually one of those teams that gets hot later on in the season. Like in the first game or so, they're not really up to speed. But by the time the second half of the season kicks in, they're on fire. And that's exactly, well, it didn't happen this past season. P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. started off undefeated and, they were really good. Pretty much the entire year, but it went that way in seasons like 2019 and 2017 for sure. Especially in 2019 when they lost their first game to the Murphy Bulldogs. That was a tough one. But then they ended up going 9-3 on the season and making it all the way to the second round of the state playoffs. So, yeah. But anyways, these 2 teams, this should be a really good game because both of these teams are really good. Of course, Brevard had a below-average season last year, even though they finished 4-3, which isn't bad on paper. But like I said in a previous episode of this podcast, Brevard faltered horribly in their final 2 games, missing out on a playoff spot. But anyway, so with that all being said, I think because it's played in Milltown, Brevard usually plays P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. really tough on the road. Last time they played over in Milltown, Brevard only lost by 5 points. I was at that game, and it was heartbreaking. But thankfully, Brevard ended up winning the conference that year, so there's that. But anyway, so I'm going to say P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. takes this one. Mainly because they're a very hot and cold team on opening day. And Milltown is a very tough place to play, so P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. starts off with a win there. Unfortunately, I really want Brevard to win that game. I hate P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. so much. But who knows? It just depends on whether or not P.F.H.S.A.A.W.N.C. is going to be good this season or not. But Brett Chappell usually coaches a really good team up there, so let's move on. Moving on to week 2, this is another tough one. This is when Brevard hosts Robbinsville. Yep. And if you remember in my previous episode of the podcast for high school sports all across Western North Carolina, I stated that Robbinsville was in our conference, but they're not. At least I don't think they are. But they're the Smoky Mountain Conference team that we will have to play this season. And I am honestly not looking forward. I'm looking forward to it because Robbinsville is a very, very good team. Because they've won the state championship like 2 years ago, and they almost made another appearance to last year's championship, but they lost to Murphy. So there you go. I don't really know how good Robbinsville is against teams with turf fields, because Robbinsville, they play on grass fields. But this should be an interesting game. I just don't know. Brevard has a lot of talent. Robbinsville has a lot of talent. This game could go either way, but I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna go with Robbinsville, just in the slightest edge. I want Brevard to win both of these games, but they're both against top tier opponents, and Brevard does have some struggles on defense now, unless Coach Craig Pritchett can fix that this offseason, which I have a lot of faith in him that he will. I just see that as a potential loss, but who knows? Maybe Brevard could even win that game. Who knows? Moving on to week 3, you got the Asheville Cougars coming into town. They were a 3A team. They compete with teams like AC Reynolds and TC Robertson every year, who are really good 3A teams. And Asheville was also a good 3A team once upon a time. They're no slouches themselves, but these past couple seasons, they've had below average seasons. Now, do I think Asheville will be really good again? Yes, but will they good enough? Will they be good enough to face the atmosphere of Brevard? We will just have to wait and see. So for now, I'm gonna say Brevard picks this one up. Although, like I said with the previous 2 games, this one could go either way. And now Brevard hops back on the road to face another Western Mountain Athletic 3A team, the Irwin Warriors. Oh, yes. Now, Irwin really picked things up last season, and they were another one of those teams that, for a long time, they were a really good team. And they still are. But, in of its own self, Irwin is a very hot and cold team. And if you follow Irwin very closely, then I think you might see why. These past 2 seasons, Irwin has kind of had down years, but they are competitive. Especially at their home stadium. And that's where I see the disadvantages coming in. But I do think that Brevard will be able to beat Irwin, but I think it'll be a very close game. So I'm going to say Brevard wins this one to get them to 500 on the year. So let's move on. Week 5, you got the East Rutherford Cavaliers coming to town. Now, as I said in the first episode when I talked about the biggest disappointments, East Rutherford was up there. And mainly because this past season, they were nothing but a big pile of cow dung. Now, East Rutherford fans, I don't mean to offend you. This is not a rant video of any way, shape, or form. But if you look at it on paper, East Rutherford really didn't, or at least from what I've seen, East Rutherford didn't really provide a lot of competitiveness. And they're usually a really good football team. Now, yeah, I know in 2019 they only won 1 game, but they were competitive in all of those games. All of them. Last year, they really didn't even put up an effort from what I saw. I mean, it was excuse me, but I think this is one of the easier teams on the schedule, but, trap games are a thing, and East Rutherford could be one of those teams that could be a trap team. So, but I'm going to say Brevard gets the win here. So Brevard will win. I'm hoping. So that puts them to 3-2 on the season. Moving on to week 6, you got the RS Central Hilltoppers. Now, this could be a team that is either in our conference or is not. Because at this point, who the frick knows? But the RS Central Hilltoppers, not Robbinsville. RS Central, they were a really good team last season. And they competed with Chase for the Rutherford County title. Although Chase won that game, it was an exciting one. I do like what RS Central has done. I like what Brad Hutchins' team has done so far. And I honestly think that this is going to be yet another competitive football team, but we will see. But for right now, I do think that RS Central will have a good season, but I don't think they're going to be able to beat Brevard. Now, yeah, they do have home field advantage, so that's one thing. But, like I said, it could go either way. So, with that said, RS Central is here. So, Brevard's 4-2 now as we go into the bye week. Brevard's going slow on a 4-2 and coming out of the bye week, and that will prepare for Brevard's next team, which is the Chase Trojans. Oh man, what a fun team they've been to watch these past 2 seasons. Usually Chase was one of those teams that was like down in the dumps, but these past 2 seasons they have been really good, like really good. And of course, in the 2019 playoffs, Brevard and Chase played. Again, I was at that game because I'm in the marching band for Brevard, so there's that. And anyways, so that game, it got off slow. It actually started off really good, but then Brevard pulled away 48-21 in that game. Court Radford was the head coach of Chase at the time, and now he's the coach for Asheville. But what Chase did last season was unthinkable. They were basically a team that was having a new head coach, and this was one of those moments, one of those very rare moments, where a team with a new head coach worked. And Chase went toe-to-toe with some really tough teams. Take Shelby, for example. They were this close of beating Shelby on the road. And Shelby, like I frequently mention, they are a perennial state championship contender. So, yeah. Chase and RS Central, as I said when I was talking about RS Central, they had a great shootout. Even though Chase won that game, it was very close. It was like an overtime by 1 point, I believe. I could be wrong. But Chase, you could tell that they are developing a winning culture, and the fact that Chase hosts Brevard at their place. I've been to Chase High School, and I've been in that stadium, and my gosh, that is something else. It was for a band competition. It was hot. But who knows? This game could honestly go either way. It'll be a fun game, that's for sure. But I'm going to say Brevard wins this one here. 5. And plus, they kind of own Chase at this moment. So, I'm a little bit worried about this game considering what Chase has done. But I do think that it'll be a fun game. So, with that said, Brevard gets the win. Moving right along to week 9, yes, we take on the R.L. Patton Panthers from Morganton. Now, this team is in our conference, and this was a team that I forgot to mention on the previous episode of this podcast. But this is a team that I don't really know that well. So this is a new team for me to get to know and understand. But I have seen Patton and Brevard duel it out in the past. Like in the 2019 volleyball tournaments, one of the opponents that Brevard had to face on their way to, I believe it was the state finals, was Patton, and Brevard won that match. So there's that. But this time we got them on the road. It's a very long way, about an hour and a half away from Brevard. But I do think that Brevard is going to be able to pull it out because based on what I've seen, Patton has not had relevant football seasons. Now, the Patton Panthers could play spoiler, but if you're going to play a team that is as highly disciplined and highly well coached as Brevard, then you're gonna you're gonna have to bring in everything you get, or otherwise you're gonna get kicked in the behind. So, with that said, I think Brevard will win this one. They've now won 6 games in a row, so 6-2. We're moving on to Week 10. You got the Hendersonville Bearcats. This might probably be the most difficult team we have to play on our schedule this year. Outside of Robbinsville, of course. But Hendersonville, they're coming off an amazing season. They were the 1 seed in the 2A bracket. They made it all the way to the state semifinals where they lost to Mountain Heritage. We get Hendersonville at Brevard again. So that'll be fun. But who knows? I think Brevard will be able to pull this one off since Hendersonville does not have a lot of their best players. They've lost guys like Jalavion Gaines. They've lost they lost Dorian Allen. They still have their quarterback Gavin Gosnell, but who knows? Hendersonville could be one of those teams that can either build off the success of the previous season or falter miserably due to all those guys lost. So for now, I'm going to say Brevard gets this win, but it will be very close. So 7-2 for Brevard. Let's move on to the next one. Week 11. Brevard hosting Polk County. These are my 2 favorite high school football teams in the country. Both of these teams are absolutely amazing to me. Of course, we get Polk County at our place, and from what I've seen, Polk County doesn't really tend to do well on turf fields. I could be wrong. But when you're facing off against a quality opponent like Brevard, this is another one of those games where it could honestly go either way. But I'm sticking with the hometown faithful. I'm going with Brevard, and they win their 8th straight to cap off the season. 8-2 overall, although they could very well either be 9-1 or 7-3 or anything. Brevard does not have a great schedule, doesn't have an easy schedule at all. Most of the teams that are on the schedule are hardcore playoff teams. So we'll just have to ride out the wave, if you will. Okay, and so with that all being said, that concludes my breakdown of all the teams that Brevard will have to play on their new football schedule for the upcoming 2021 season. And so with that all being said, thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.